We are delighted to welcome one of our Wilson Center scholars for a discussion with us today, noted German journalist Christoph von Marschall. Christoph is the Chief Diplomatic Correspondent for the Berlin daily Tagesspiegel, and he has joined us at Wilson this year. He is, however, very familiar with Washington because he was their correspondent from Washington for a number of years and, in fact, wrote his last book during a stint here in Washington. So I can't wait to see what he produces during this year with us. So welcome, Christoph.
Thanks.
We are going to discuss the elections that took place in Saxony and Thuringia on Sunday. And I'm so grateful that you're able to talk to us about this because these elections had a startling result. The headline was the rise of the right. The far-right Alternative for Germany party won big in both states. Can you talk to us a little bit about what was in their platform that made them so attractive?
They have taken over the main role of opposition to the governing parties, the old West German parties like Christian Democrat, Social Democrat, Liberals, Greens. It used to be the Die Linke, the left, post-communist party. But after many years, people got disappointed because the left never didn't produce what they expected. But they are still in opposition, many of the citizens in these new Länder, as we call them, still more than 30 years after unification. And now they are betting on the far right as an alternative. And that doesn't mean that all these people, as far as I have seen them, met them, are all in their heart far right convicted people. It's not that they really have an right ideology, but they are against this feeling that they are governed by the West and that it's a different culture where they live, and we will get into that. It's about the relationship to Russia, to the war, to capitalism, to the West in general.
I was so surprised because I really thought of AfD at its start as being an anti-EU party in a way, and it has become something that is really putting forward alternatives in terms of immigration, concerns about that, concerns about Russia. The outcome wasn't the same in both states, though. In Thuringia, it came out on top, but in Saxony, it came second. What accounts for this, do you think?
Well, the AfD as an alternative is, as you said, it started somewhere else. It was at the beginning the professorial party. Economists who were against the euro would say that would not work if you just have a common currency, but not the same policy when it comes to finance, to economy, and that this wouldn't work. And you heard this criticism in the States as well, whether the euro can work that way. Then they always jumped on the issue with what at hand, where people were somehow unsatisfied. And it was, of course, Corona, so they were the anti-Corona party, they were the anti-immigration party, and at the moment they are the anti-war party because the war in Ukraine is very unpopular, and that Germany is helping Ukraine against the Russian aggression is also very unpopular in Eastern Germany, since they have so long under Soviet rule, and they are, for reasons we as Westerners can't really understand, they have still this feeling that Russia has been badly treated by the West, and so they think, and we East Germans have been treated badly by Western Germany. They just took us over, and we didn't have a say in unification, and so on and so on. Now in Turin, they are the strongest one, and the CDU is far behind them, which is the second. In Saxony, it's a little bit different, as you said. They are almost at the same level. CDU is just one seat ahead of AfD. And now it becomes very difficult what coalitions are possible politically, but also if you look at the numbers. And I think Saxony will be not that difficult. There is one predicament for the CDU. The CDU and generally the Western democratic parties, Christian Democrat, Social Democrat, Liberals, they all said, we will not work together with the AfD because they are too far right. The CDU also said, we will never work together with Die Linke because they are socialist, communist, pro-Russian. And now there is this new party led by Sarah Wagenknecht Wagenknecht, who was a very famous politician from the left party, but she split it away and took some of her fellow politicians with her, and now it's called the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, BSW after her name. And if you look at what she is claiming, what she wants to do, it is very similar, a mixture of the AfD and Die Linke, the far left. So she's anti-capitalist, she's anti-West, she's pro-social, but the difference to the AfD is that she is very social and defines herself as left in social terms, and AfD is ultra-conservative right, so she can't work with them. And since she split from Die Linke, there's also an antagony between those former partners within one party. And the difference is that the left, Die Linke, is very international, so pro-immigration and so on. And Sarah Wagenknecht preaches a national economy, protectionist. We don't want to have competition from workers coming from outside against the German people and so on. So it's a sort of a difficult and surprising mixture of right-wing ideas and left-wing ideas in the same party. And if we hadn't this very difficult German history, you could call them the National Socialist Party, but not in the sense of Nazis and with its racial program. But the political program is national and socialist. So maybe we should say social nationalist or something like that, that don't people mistake it for a new Nazi party. They are not a Nazi party, but it is a strange party, and it's very strange for Germany that we have a party which is named after one person, not after a program, Sarah Wagenknecht. And in addition comes that Sarah Wagenknecht, who is the head, and clearly people vote for Sarah Wagenknecht or her ideas when they make their cross at the BSW. But she is not running for nothing. She started first in the European election, but she didn't want to become a member of the European Parliament. Now they are in these regional elections in Saxony, in Thuringia, next week in Brandenburg. She doesn't want to become a member of the parliament of these länder. So she's just there to be, well, she's the person, the figure at the head, and everybody can see in her whatever those people want. And it's mainly, it's a strange thing for me.
You know, I was surprised because she only founded the party, the Bundes Sarah Wagenknecht, this year.
Yeah.
So she managed to get it up, running, and get this kind of resonance with the population.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that what you basically have here are two populist parties. And the Sarah Wagenknecht came in third in these.
Around 14, 15, 16%. That's what she's doing in the new länder.
Yeah, and so this is extraordinary that you have AfD and BSW coming in with this kind of populist program and completely shutting out the established parties, with the exception of the CDU, which managed to kind of hold its own to some degree in the. What accounts for this appeal of populism?
Well, it is mainly a protest vote. These people are not ideological, voting for AfD, or for ideological reasons voting for Sarah Wagenknecht or Die Linke. Of course, they have their different tradition in Eastern Germany, so they are far more into a social welfare state. They are very cautious, risk adverse, don't risk any conflict with Russia, all these type of things. They are very anti-US and anti-West. They don't want to take risk also when it comes to their personal life, economic life. They want this good father state who takes care of you and you don't have too much to worry about and everything is somehow granted for you. Maybe at a low level. They also don't like the differences in incomes, so they're against the rich. They want to tax the rich with a very progressive system. And that, of course, is also all Sarah Wagenknecht, Die Linke. The rich have to pay, and somehow somebody has to make sure that our life is without any problems.
So the parties of the current government coalition at the federal level came in single digits in this election.
Yeah.
How worried should they be about this? Because federal elections are next year.
Yeah, they should be very, very worried. And it's pretty clear that today's chancellor, Olaf Scholz, a social democrat, he has not really a chance to win an election and stay as the prime minister, as the chancellor. There are discussions within the Social Democratic Party because there's a very popular Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius. If he would take over, the Social Democrats would do better, but whether they would be able to win against the Christian Democrats in a national election, that's a question. Maybe we have first to point out that what you have seen in the East, that is not what you can expect in all over Germany. This is really a phenomenon of the new Länder. Of course, AfD has also supporters all over Germany, but not to that degree. And also Die Linke and Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, they are not as strong all over Germany as they are in these 5 new Bundesländer. And so this is a regional phenomenon. But generally speaking, of course, it is true that the governing coalition together, which has more than 50% of the seats, otherwise they couldn't form the government, they are now in the polls together around 30%. And the Christian Democrats alone, as one party, as one bloc, have 30% or even more. So this is really worrying for them. And the main reason for that is when they ran for the last election, that was before the war. So they had a certain program and plans what they wanted to do. Then Ukraine war started. They should have shifted the whole coalition program, which they did not. They just continued as if nothing had happened. Of course, not totally as nothing had happened. We had the Zeitenwende-Rede of the Chancellor. They supported Ukraine. They gave more money for defense. But it's not that they really shifted tack from here to there. It was just a slow adjustment. And all the other programs, social programs or programs for the environment, for climate policy, the Greens are very fond of. This all continued as if there was not this change in priority. It's now all over the feeling it's security first. Climate is still important, but not as important as it was before. Number one, and then nothing behind. So they were not able to convince people that they are really shifting their priorities and adjusting to the new world where we have a war in Europe, which is just a few hundred kilometers away from the German eastern border. And that is the reason why you see these protest votes. You would have seen them in the eastern Länder anyway, but not to that degree. And now you have this protest vote all over Germany, and most people would think that the Christian Democrats will win the national election, not to a degree like 20 years ago when the governing party could have over 40% of the vote, but they will have 30 and a little bit more. And now it is very probable that we see a Christian Democrat-led government after next year's election. And who will be in a coalition with them, that is still an open question, whether we'll have to go to the so-called grand coalition with the Social Democrats, diminished, but still that 2 parties can be in a coalition, or they go with the Greens but need an additional partner. They certainly don't go on the national level, not with the AfD, not with Die Linke, and not with Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht. That is out of the question.
So before we come to the 2025 elections at the federal level, they still have to form these governments in these 2 states. Will they be able to do it, especially in Thuringia where it's really tough?
Yeah.
Right?
So the Christian Democrats have a decision of incompatibility with certain political parties. So no coalition, no tolerance when it comes to AfD, the right wing. No tolerance when it comes to Die Linke. And now comes the funny part. At the time when they took that decision, the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht was not there yet. So there is no such decision of incompatibility. If you look at the political agenda, it should cover the BSW as well. But when it gets to the numbers and the CDU wants to form a government in Thuringia and in Saxony, they are short of a governing majority if they don't get votes from BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, where you don't have the incompatibility decision, or of Die Linke, or of the AfD. So AfD, no, that is excluded until today. In Saxony, they can go the CDU with the Social Democrats diminished, plus the BSW, the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, and then they have a comfortable majority. It's just a question whether they want to enter a formal coalition with Sarah Wagenknecht. And you have a lot of protest voices now in the Christian Democratic Party saying, never go there. We have to find a different solution, how we govern. But you can't form a government with Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, which is a mixture of AfD and left. If you say we can't go with left, we can't go with AfD, so why can you go with this mixture of both ideas? Wow. So that is a problem. And in Thuringia is even more problematic, because even if they would jump to that decision and say, okay, Christian Democrats plus Social Democrats plus Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, they are still one seat short of a governing majority. And here comes in, Thuringia had a tolerated minority government over the last years. And the head was Bodo Ramelow, who formally is a member of the left party. But, you know, he's a Western unionist. He comes from the trade unions. He is a Christian who goes every Sunday to church. So you don't think that this is the right party for him. Why is Bodo Ramelow in the left party? He's such a pragmatic guy. So his government was tolerated by the CDU, and now he offered, since you tolerated me, you are one seat short, here's my voice, I will give my seat for this coalition in order the AfD will be excluded from any coalition option. So Bodo Ramelow would say, yes, please form this government, CDU, SPD, Social Democrats, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, and the one seat short, you have me, and I will vote for this government.
Wow, this is going to be very interesting. We'll have to come back and chat a bit when they actually do this. I think that for people who are listening to this, sitting here in the U.S., okay, we see this as special to the eastern part of Germany, right? Yeah. And it will certainly have implications for the elections in Germany overall next year. I think that their question will be, what does this mean for Germany's assistance to Ukraine? What does it mean for Germany's relationship to Russia, and what does it mean for Germany's relationship to the U.S.?
Yes, yeah. Well, it should mean nothing. That would be the official answer, because regional governments don't have a say in foreign policy, don't have a say in defense policy. They should be just do their regional stuff. That's not what they have been elected for. But of course, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht and the AfD, they say, well, wait a moment. This is the voice of the people. They elected us. And if these people elected us because we promised peace, whatever that means, peace, and that we stopped the aid for Ukraine, that has to have some consequences. And that is one of the tricky points. When CDU tries to form a government, they have to get around and say, you know, we understand that you say that. We understand that you told people vote for us and then we will do this and this. But that's not our system. In our system, the regional government don't have a say. So you can argue whatever you want on your platforms and when you are speaking up in public and so on. But there will be not a coalition treaty in which this will be somehow put onto paper, that it has consequences for Ukraine policy, for Russia policy, for the relationship with the West, and of course the leading country, the United States. But people expect, and I think it has to be some sort of a learning experience. No, you can't change foreign policy or defense policy by voting on a regional level. And I think we should be very strict in trying to explain to voters, to citizens, no, you might have a majority or you might have a huge part of the votes in your regional elections, but on the national level, where these things are decided, you are just a small minority. And so you can't ask for consequences on the national level by voting in a regional election.
You've given us a lot to watch. What is your advice to people who are watching this podcast saying, okay, what do I need to look for in the coming 6 months?
First of all, this has consequences for the power inside the parties. Of course, we mentioned that already, Chancellor Olaf Scholz is in a very difficult situation, and it's not clear how long he can maintain his post, given the ramifications also of our constitutional court. In Germany, you can't just dissolve the parliament and cut a period of governing short, which you also can't in the US. Presidential term is always 4 years. You can't say, no, it's only 3 years this time and we have early elections. So we probably won't see that, but we will see a discussion within the Social Democratic Party who will be the next candidate for Chancellor. And of course, Olaf Scholz will try to fence that off, but he will be at a certain moment challenged by the defense minister, Pistorius. And even if Pistorius himself wouldn't step up, then voices in the party will say, we want a winning chance, so please and then, that's interesting, they always say, it just happened in the US. Joe Biden just also had to make place for Kamala Harris. So Olaf Scholz, please take that example and make some space. In the Christian Democratic Party, we have some very similar, because the former leader, Friedrich Merz, is not very popular. They are also the prime minister of our biggest land, which is Nordrhein-Westfalen, Herr Wüst, Mr. Wüst. He is much more popular, and so we'll see also here a discussion inside. And then, of course, it's connected with probable coalitions. The CDU is split between people who would like to see a Christian Democratic Green coalition because they think that's the future. And others say, no, wait a minute. The Greens also were not able really to adjust to the new situation. Climate policy, green policy is not as important as it was before. They stand for that. That's their brand. And so you get into trouble. Better go with the Social Democrats. This is a former grand coalition, so-called. It's not that grand, but it allowed us to have a clear governing majority, and they are much more predictable, much more traditional in the sense how we understood Western democracy 20, 30 years ago. But since that's a tradition from 20, 30 years ago, it's also not that clear if that's the way to go. But for sure, there will be voices about these incompatibility agreements or decisions, whether you can maintain that or whether it should be somehow fixed or used more flexible, depending on which level we are forming. So on the national level, it's a clear no to AfD. On the regional level, let's see whether one could be a little bit more flexible with whether it's with the left or with its AfD or is it with Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, because when it comes to their political platform, it's very similar. So that doesn't make sense. So that is to watch for. What happens to Olaf Scholz? How is the discussion within the Christian Democratic Party about the candidate for chancellor and about the coalition options? And then how the whole thing in general develops.
All right. Well, then we will be watching all of those things. Thank you very much for joining us, Christoph, and for giving us your insight into this. And we will be watching for all of these points that you've outlined for us. Thank you for being our guide.
Thank you, Robin, for inviting me to the format. It was fun.